Davis, and I'm coming to you from the beautiful Four String Ranch here in Austin, Texas. And today I'd like to talk to you about an age-old question: cycle or circle? Which is it? I'd like to begin with a quick explanation of the difference between the circle of fifths and what I like to refer to as the cycle of fourths. When you're working with the musical alphabet, you just count letters to determine the distance between one thing and another. So from C, you count 4 letters, you're on F. Count 4 letters from F, you're on B or B flat. 4 letters from that, you're on an E of some sort. 4 letters from that, you're on an A. 4 letters from that, you're on D. The circle of fifths is the same letters moving 5 steps at a time. So from C you'd be up to G, and from G you'd be up to D, and from D you'd be up to A. The circle of fifths is what most people have been exposed to in learning what notes are in which key. When we memorize there are 4 notes in the key of E, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, whatever. We use the circle of fifths for that. But I use the cycle of fourths as a more practical way to practice chord changes as it pertains to most of the songs that we are playing in popular music. Now I'd like to take a look at how do we map the cycle of fourths out on the fingerboard. Basically, every move that you make that is up a fourth or down a fifth is going to continue along the path of the cycle of fourths. So I'll just go around alternating between the two. I'm going from C, up a fourth to F, down a fifth. I'm on B flat, up a fourth. I'm on E flat, down a fifth. I'm on A flat, up a fourth, D flat, down a fifth, G flat, up a fourth, B, up another fourth, E, down a fifth, A, up a fourth, D, down a fifth, G. Here's one of my favorite grooves of all time, of course, the shuffle. Everything's better when it shuffles. So that's an example of a pattern moving through the cycle of fourths. I'm just repeating the same little box pattern over each chord in the cycle. Let me put this in the context of a common musical form, a 12-bar blues. So you start on a 1 chord. I'm going to use the key of C here. I'm on the 1 chord. The very first change I hear is going to the 4, which is, of course, 4 steps from where I started. And I'm going to move around and go back and forth between 1 and 4, but inevitably what always happens is we end up on the 5 chord and then a 1 chord. And again, the distance between the 5 chord of a key and its own 1 is 4 steps. So every time you play a blues, you're moving up a fourth from the 1 to the 4, and you're also moving a fourth whenever you go from 5 to 1. Most of the moves that you make in the blues are really in fourths. Beyond the 3-chord blues progression, there's, various types of turnarounds that are common in blues music. For example, in most jazzier kind of blues, you would have a 1 chord that would turn around up to a 6, which would mean going from C to A, the 6th of the key. And then from there, you're just going to move in fourths until you're back at home on the C. So from 1 to 6 on the A, I'm going to move a fourth to D, which is the 2. Another fourth puts me on G, which is the 5, and another fourth puts me back to 1. So it's like a little harmonic hill that you start at the top of and just roll back to 1 every time. Right above 1 is 5, right above 5 is 2, right above 2 is 6, and above at the top of the hill is 3. You start at 3 and you're at 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, and you're just rolling down. And that's a very typical way of turning around in any piece of music, whether it's blues or jazz or any other type of music. So here it is, an example of a 12-bar blues form with that 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 turnaround that most of us have heard before. And I'm just going to play the same box pattern here from a C. A, D, G, C, 6, A, D, G, C. Another example of that 3-6-2-5 business on the harmony hill, as I referred to it, is a commonly butchered bridge. The song "Dancin' in the Streets," which I believe, I don't even remember, is in the key of G. They'll be dancing, dancing in the streets. And then the bridge. That doesn't matter what you are on the 3 chord, just as long as you are there. 6, 2, everybody, 5 and around the world, and a 1. So, typical 3-6-2-5 bridge. So to reiterate, the bridge that I just played through there went from the key of G, went from the 3 chord, which was B, up a 4th to the 6 chord, which was E, another 4th to the 2 chord, A, another 4th to the 5 chord, another 4th back to 1. So the entire bridge, starting on the 3 chord, moves around the cycle back to 1. So another common thing is jazz tunes. For example, one of the most common jazz tunes, the thing that we all kind of learn in our first year of jazz study, the song Autumn Leaves, which actually is a template for a lot of other tunes like it. It also moves pretty much in fourths. I won't get into talking about what key it's in and how everything relates in that manner, but I will mention that everything is still moving in fourths. You have an A minor chord, going to a D dominant, that's a 4th, going to a 4th to G major 7, another 4th to C major 7. Then it breaks that by a half step. We're on a tritone interval down to F sharp, half diminished, and then back to fourths again, from F sharp, a 4th to B7, and from B, a 4th back to E minor, which swings you another 4th back to the start. So the entire song is really an exercise in going around the circle or cycle, and then just coming halfway across it and breaking across it in that manner, and then doubling back on yourself again. So everything but one of these changes is in fourths. I'm just going to play the chord tones first. And we're back around. Or I can just connect the dots with a linear pattern in between all of those, because I practiced my cycle of fourths exercise where I went like this for hours after Gerald Veasley first taught me the cycle of fourths in my very first lesson with him, which I'll never forget. But I can play linear around Autumn Leaves in fourths all day without really thinking that much, because these lines are chromatic. Half of this is chromatic, so it doesn't even matter what type of chord I'm using it over. It just connects the dots so seamlessly. From A, up a 4th to D, up a 4th to G, up a 4th, down a tritone, and then up a 4th, down a 4th, and I'm back, or down a 5th or up a 4th, I'm back to A where I started. So I can play and connect those dots all day long by just practicing the cycle as its own exercise. Why the cycle? People ask me that sometimes. Why do you think of it that way, and why do you work with it in that way? I think it's just a super practical practice method, because you're working on a lot of skills at the same time. You're hearing the cyclical motion of that chord progression of things moving in fourths, which we've established is the most common movement from one chord to another. If there were a supercomputer that you could program with every musical composition ever created in Western music and ask it what's the most common distance between this chord and the next one, it would spit out the number 4 every time. It's by far the most common. It's every 5 chord as it releases to 1, which is occurring in almost every piece of Western music. It's the 2-5-1 progression, which we all know is sort of the linchpin of most jazz tunes, and it might appear in 5 or 6 different keys in the same 12 bars, but it's still mainly moving in fourths. It's a great way to get those chord changes in your ear and be able to hear a little better on the fly. what's going on when you're on the gig and you have no idea what the song is that you're playing until you're actually playing it, and you just have to be all ears and listening and playing the odds game that if you're on a G chord, the odds that it will go to a C chord are higher than not. And so if I am playing some song I've never played before with some artist and I'm on a G, it doesn't even matter what key I'm in, I'm betting C is next, and if C is not next, I always have a plan B, which is to go backwards one step on the cycle or moving a fifth, which is why it's also good to know your circle of fifths, which is kind of another whole topic, but mapping out things in fifths on the fingerboard and getting that into your ear is also very important. It's always my plan B. If it didn't move a fourth, it moved a fifth, or maybe it moved a step. But I have a plan A, which is always to go a fourth, a plan B, which is to maybe move a fifth, and a plan C, which is to move a step. And between those three things, I can usually recover myself within a beat or two of any missed changes, because I know what's coming. I know the odds, and I know how to play the odds. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the 4-String Ranch channel. There's going to be lots of great videos coming on the 4-String Ranch channel. And if you're curious about me and would like to know more about me, you can visit me at lynndavis.com. It's LYNNEDAVIS.com. And I have all kinds of educational materials on my website, a lot of free stuff available on my website, and also educational stuff that I've created. I write ebooks, and I just put out my first print book this year, actually. So all that stuff is available at lynndavis.com. And it's all about education, inspiration, and appreciation. Thank you guys for watching.